Because what you are about to hear is not loud, not flashy, and not meant for the distracted mind. The world has taught you that success makes noise, that winners announce themselves, that greatness must be seen to be real. But that is a lie, a dangerous lie. The real laws of winning big operate in silence. The strongest individuals you will ever encounter do not waste energy explaining their moves. They do not seek approval. They do not chase attention. They build in silence. They suffer in silence. And when they finally rise, the world has no choice but to notice. If you want to win at a level that most people only dream about, you must first understand this. Noise is weakness. Silence is power. Every time you speak your plans too early, you leak energy. Every time you seek validation, you dilute your focus. The mind begins to feel accomplished without actually doing the work. And that illusion kills greatness before it is born. So the first law is simple. Move in silence. Let results be your voice. Now understand this. Clarity is not optional. It is the foundation of power. A confused mind cannot win. A distracted soul cannot build. The world is filled with people who start, stop, doubt, restart, and quit. Not because they lack ability, but because they lack direction. You must decide. Not tomorrow, not someday. Right now, what do you want? Not vaguely, not emotionally. Precisely because once the mind locks onto a clear vision, something extraordinary happens. Energy aligns, decisions become easier, distractions lose their grip, and suddenly the path that once felt impossible becomes inevitable. Clarity creates control, and control creates power. But clarity alone is not enough. You will be tested emotionally, mentally, relentlessly. There will be days when everything in you wants to quit, days when doubt whispers louder than belief, days when progress feels invisible. And in those moments, most people break. Why? Because they never learned the third law. Emotional discipline wins wars. It is not your talent that will define you. It is not your intelligence. It is your ability to stay steady when everything inside you is shaking, to act with precision when emotions are screaming for reaction, to keep moving forward when nothing feels certain. That is power. You must train yourself to respond, not react, to think, not panic, to act, not hesitate, because winners are not those who feel strong all the time. They are those who move forward even when they feel weak. Now listen closely, because this is where most people fail without realizing it. They wait for motivation. They wait to feel ready. They wait for the perfect moment. And while they wait, time moves, opportunities disappear. And someone else, less talented but more consistent, takes the life they were supposed to have. This is why the fourth law is non-negotiable. Consistency beats intensity. Every time, you do not need to be extraordinary for one day. You need to be relentless every day. Small actions, repeated, without excuse, without negotiation. That is how empires are built. That is how identities are transformed. That is how ordinary people become unstoppable forces. Now understand something even deeper. Your vision is sacred. Not everyone will understand it. Not everyone will support it. And if you expose it too early, too often, to the wrong people, it will be weakened. Doubt is contagious. Negativity spreads faster than belief. And if you are not careful, the voices around you will become louder than the voice within you. So you must learn the fifth law. Protect your vision at all costs. Guard it, nurture it, strengthen it in silence until it becomes so powerful that no opinion can shake it. Because once your belief becomes unbreakable, nothing external can stop you. And now we arrive at the final law, the one that separates dreamers from winners. Decisions define destiny, not wishes, not hopes, not intentions. Decisions, a real decision, cuts off alternatives. It burns the bridges behind you. It forces commitment. It creates pressure, and pressure creates transformation. You cannot win big while keeping one foot in comfort and the other in ambition. You must choose, fully, boldly, irreversibly, because the moment you decide with absolute certainty, something shifts. The mind stops negotiating, the body starts aligning, and the path begins to reveal itself in ways logic cannot explain. This is not luck. This is not coincidence. This is the silent law of commitment in motion. So if you are serious about winning big, truly serious, then stop looking for noise, hype, and shortcuts. Instead, work when no one is watching. Focus when others are distracted. Persist when others are quitting. And believe when others are doubting, because in the end, the loud ones may get attention, but the silent ones, they take everything. And when your moment comes, and it will come if you follow these laws, you won't need to announce it. Your results will speak so loudly. That silence will become your signature. Silence is power. Not the kind of silence that comes from fear, hesitation, or weakness, but the kind that is chosen, controlled, and weaponized. The kind of silence that sharpens the mind, focuses the will, and builds something so strong within you that no external noise can break it. Most people misunderstand silence. They think if you are not speaking, you are losing. If you are not showing, you are falling behind. But the truth is far more dangerous than that. The loudest individuals often carry the weakest foundations because they are busy announcing instead of building. They are addicted to attention, not committed to transformation. And while they chase validation, the silent one is preparing domination. Silence is where clarity is born. When you remove the noise of opinions, distractions, and constant comparison, something powerful begins to emerge. You start hearing your own thoughts without interference. You begin to understand what you truly want, not what the world has programmed you to chase. That level of clarity is rare, and rarity creates value. The moment you become clear, your energy stops leaking in different directions. Your focus tightens, your decisions become sharper. You no longer waste time trying to impress people who do not matter. You become dangerous, not because you are loud, but because you are certain. There is a discipline in silence that most people will never master. It is easy to talk. It is easy to post, to announce, to explain every move before it is even executed. But it takes strength to hold back. It takes control to keep your plans protected while you work on them relentlessly. Every time you speak too soon, you release pressure. And pressure is necessary for growth. When you keep your goals silent, that pressure builds inside you. It forces action. It creates urgency. It eliminates the illusion of progress and replaces it with real, measurable movement. Silence also builds emotional control. When you are not reacting to every comment, every opinion, every negative voice, you begin to rise above them. You stop giving your energy to things that do not deserve it. You learn to observe instead of react, to calculate instead of panic. This is where true power is developed. Not in moments of comfort, but in moments where you choose control over chaos. The world is full of people who lose simply because they cannot control their emotions. They speak out of anger, they act out of fear, and they collapse under pressure. But the silent individual remains steady, focused, unshaken. There is also a hidden advantage in moving quietly. When no one knows your next step, no one can interfere with it. When your vision is protected, it grows stronger without external influence. Most dreams die not because they are impossible, but because they are exposed too early to the wrong minds. Doubt spreads quickly. Negativity is contagious. And if your belief is not yet unbreakable, those voices will weaken it. Silence protects your belief until it becomes so strong that no opinion can destroy it. Consistency becomes easier in silence. When you are not seeking applause, you stop depending on motivation. You show up because you have decided to, not because someone is watching. You work because it is necessary, not because it is impressive. This is where the real separation happens. Anyone can perform when there is attention, but very few can persist when there is none. And those few are the ones who win at levels others cannot even comprehend. They understand that success is not built in moments of recognition, but in long periods of invisibility. Silence also forces you to face yourself. Without distractions, without constant noise, you are left alone with your thoughts, your fears, your weaknesses, and that is uncomfortable. Most people run from that moment. They fill their lives with noise to avoid confronting their own limitations. But if you have the courage to sit in that silence, to analyze yourself honestly, you gain an advantage that cannot be taught. You begin to understand where you are weak and where you must improve. You stop lying to yourself. You stop making excuses. And once you remove excuses, progress becomes inevitable. Powerful individuals are not easily read. They do not reveal everything. They do not speak more than necessary. Their presence alone creates impact because there is depth behind it. When you speak less, your words carry more weight. When you move quietly, your actions create more shock. There is a psychological force in being unpredictable, in being controlled, in not giving the world full access to your mind. It creates respect, even fear, because people cannot measure you. And understand this clearly, silence does not mean inactivity. It does not mean hiding or avoiding responsibility. It means working without distraction, building without announcement, and progressing without seeking permission. It means you are so focused on your mission that external noise becomes irrelevant. You are not silent because you have nothing to say. You are silent because you have something too important to waste on unnecessary words. The world will always be full of noise, opinions, criticism, distractions, endless voices trying to pull your attention away from what truly matters. But those who master silence rise above all of it. They create their own path, their own rhythm, their own results. They do not compete for attention. They compete for mastery. And mastery does not speak loudly. It reveals itself through undeniable results. When you embrace silence as a strategy, not a weakness, everything changes. Your focus deepens. Your discipline strengthens. Your vision becomes clearer, and your actions become sharper. You stop chasing recognition and start building something that commands it naturally. You stop explaining yourself and start proving yourself. You stop reacting to the world and start controlling your direction within it. Silence is not empty. It is full of answers, full of strength, full of potential waiting to be activated by those who have the discipline to embrace it. Clarity creates control. The moment your mind becomes clear, your life stops drifting and starts moving with precision. Most people are not losing because they are weak. They are losing because they are scattered. Their thoughts are divided, their goals are uncertain, and their actions are inconsistent. They wake up every day reacting instead of directing, hoping instead of deciding. And in that confusion, they surrender control without even realizing it. But the second clarity enters your mind, everything begins to change. Direction replaces doubt. Focus replaces distraction. Power replaces hesitation. A clear mind does not argue with itself. It does not waste time going back and forth between options, fears, and uncertainties. It chooses a path and commits to it. That commitment creates control, because once you know exactly what you want, you stop entertaining what you don't. You stop saying yes to things that dilute your energy. You stop chasing opportunities that do not align with your purpose. Your time becomes valuable because it is no longer scattered. Your energy becomes powerful because it is no longer divided. Confusion is expensive. It costs time, it drains energy, and it weakens belief. Every moment you spend unsure is a moment you are not building. Every decision you delay is an opportunity you are pushing away. Most people live in this state for years. They think they are thinking deeply, but in reality, they are just circling the same doubts without ever making a move. They wait for perfect certainty before they act, not realizing that certainty is created through action, not before it. Clarity does not come from overthinking. It comes from deciding. The moment you decide, something shifts inside you. The mind stops wandering. The body starts aligning. You begin to notice opportunities that were always there, but hidden by your lack of focus. This is the power of clarity. It does not create new paths. It reveals the ones you were too distracted to see. And once you see them, you gain control over your direction. You are no longer moving randomly. You are moving intentionally. Control is not about controlling everything around you. That is impossible. Control is about controlling your response, your focus, and your actions, regardless of what is happening externally. And that level of control is only possible when your internal world is clear. If your mind is full of doubt, fear, and conflicting desires, you will react to everything. You will be pulled in every direction. But when your mind is clear, you become stable. You become steady. You become unshaken by external chaos. Clarity also eliminates unnecessary emotions. When you know exactly what you are doing and why you are doing it, fear loses its grip. Doubt becomes weaker. Anxiety begins to fade, not because challenges disappear, but because your mind is no longer fighting itself. There is a calmness that comes with clarity, a quiet confidence that does not need to prove itself. You are not rushing, not panicking, not seeking validation. You are simply executing. There is a dangerous habit that destroys clarity, and that is the habit of consuming too much without deciding anything. Endless information, endless opinions, endless advice. People fill their minds with knowledge but never convert it into direction. They know a little about everything but commit to nothing. And in that overload, clarity disappears. You must learn to filter. Not everything deserves your attention. Not every opinion deserves your consideration. The more selective you become, the clearer your mind will be. Clarity demands honesty. You cannot lie to yourself and expect control. You cannot pretend to want something while your actions prove otherwise. At some point, you must face the truth about who you are, where you stand, and what you are willing to do. This honesty is uncomfortable, but it is necessary, because once you see yourself clearly, you can start building intentionally. You stop hiding behind excuses. You stop blaming circumstances. You take full responsibility, and that responsibility gives you power. A clear vision also creates discipline. When you know exactly where you are going, discipline is no longer a struggle. It becomes a requirement. You do not debate whether to work or not. You do not negotiate with distractions. You understand that every action either moves you closer or pulls you away. And once that understanding becomes strong enough, your behavior begins to align automatically. You stop relying on motivation because your direction is already set. People often think control comes from external success, money, status, recognition. But those things are unstable without internal clarity. If your mind is not clear, even success will feel chaotic. You will not know how to maintain it, how to grow it, or how to protect it. True control starts within. It starts with a decision so clear that nothing can shake it. A vision so strong that distractions lose their appeal. A focus so sharp that time is used with precision. There is also strength in simplicity. Clarity is not complicated. It is not about having 10 different goals or chasing multiple directions at once. It is about narrowing your focus to what truly matters and eliminating everything else. The more you simplify, the more powerful you become, because complexity creates hesitation, and hesitation destroys momentum. Simplicity creates speed, and speed creates results. Once clarity becomes your habit, your entire life begins to shift. Decisions become faster, actions become stronger, progress becomes visible. You stop feeling lost because you are no longer wandering. You are moving with purpose, with direction, with intent, and that movement builds confidence, not the kind that comes from temporary success, but the kind that comes from knowing exactly who you are and where you are going. Clarity creates control, and control creates freedom. Not the illusion of freedom that comes from doing whatever you feel like, but the real freedom that comes from being in command of your life. Your thoughts are no longer random. Your actions are no longer accidental. Your results are no longer surprising. Everything becomes a reflection of your decisions, your focus, and your discipline, and when you reach that level, you stop depending on circumstances. You stop waiting for the right moment. You become the force that creates the moment. Emotional discipline wins wars. Not talent, not luck, not even intelligence alone. Because in the moments that truly decide outcomes, it is never about what you know, it is about what you control. And most people lose long before the battle is over, not because they lack ability, but because they cannot control what they feel. They react too quickly, they break too easily, they surrender to temporary emotions as if they were permanent truths. And in doing so, they hand over their power without resistance. Understand this clearly. Your emotions are not your enemy, but they are not your leader either. They are signals, not commands. The problem begins when you start obeying every signal without question. Anger tells you to respond immediately. Fear tells you to stop moving. Doubt tells you to retreat. And if you follow these impulses blindly, you will find yourself trapped in a cycle of hesitation and regret. The strongest individuals are not those who feel nothing, but those who feel everything and still choose their actions with precision. There is a hidden battlefield inside your mind, and it is active every single day. Every challenge, every setback, every delay triggers a reaction. That reaction determines whether you move forward or fall back. Most people never train for this internal battle. They prepare for external competition, but they ignore the war within, and because of that, they collapse under pressure. Not because the situation is too difficult, but because their response is too weak. Emotional discipline begins with awareness. You must learn to observe yourself in real time, to notice when frustration is rising, when fear is creeping in, when impatience is taking control. Without awareness, you have no chance of control. You will simply react again and again, repeating the same patterns that have kept you stuck. But the moment you become aware, even for a second, you create space. And in that space, you gain the power to choose. That choice is everything. Because between stimulus and response, there is a moment. Small, almost invisible, but powerful enough to change your entire direction. Most people ignore that moment. They rush through it, driven by impulse. But those who master emotional discipline expand that moment. They slow it down, they analyze, they decide. And in doing so, they take control of outcomes that others believe are uncontrollable. Pressure reveals truth. It exposes who you really are, not who you pretend to be. When everything is easy, anyone can appear confident, calm, and focused. But when pressure rises, masks fall. Emotions take over. And that is where the real separation happens. Those without discipline panic. They overreact. They make decisions they later regret. But those with discipline remain steady, not because they are unaffected, but because they are trained. Training emotional discipline is not comfortable. It requires you to face situations where every part of you wants to react and then choose not to. It requires you to stay calm when others are losing control, to remain focused when distractions are everywhere, to keep moving when doubt is loud. This is not natural. It is built. Repetition after repetition, choice after choice, until control becomes instinct. One of the greatest strengths you can develop is the ability to delay reaction, not to suppress emotion, but to process it before acting on it. This delay is where intelligence meets control. It allows you to respond strategically instead of impulsively, and strategy always outperforms emotion in the long run. A single emotional reaction can destroy months of progress. A single controlled response can create opportunities that change everything. Fear is one of the most powerful emotions you will face. It can freeze you, distort your thinking, and convince you that retreat is the safest option. But fear is not always a warning. It is often a test of whether you will trust your vision or surrender to uncertainty. Emotional discipline does not eliminate fear. It teaches you to move with it, not against it, to acknowledge it without obeying it. Anger is another force that must be controlled. Unchecked anger leads to reckless decisions, broken relationships, and lost opportunities. But controlled anger can be transformed into fuel. It can sharpen your focus, increase your drive, and push you to perform at higher levels. The difference lies in discipline. Whether you let anger control you or you control how it is used, consistency is impossible without emotional discipline, because there will be days when you do not feel motivated, when you do not feel confident, when you do not feel ready. And if your actions depend on how you feel, your progress will always be unstable. But when you train yourself to act regardless of emotion, you create a level of consistency that cannot be broken. You show up not because it feels good, but because it is necessary. There is a quiet confidence that comes with emotional control. It does not need to prove itself. It does not react to every challenge or criticism. It remains centered, focused, and deliberate. This confidence is built over time through repeated control in difficult moments. Every time you choose discipline over impulse, you strengthen it. Every time you stay calm under pressure, you reinforce it. The world is full of distractions designed to trigger emotional reactions, opinions, criticism, negativity, comparison. If you allow yourself to be affected by everything, you will lose focus on what truly matters. Emotional discipline acts as a filter. It allows you to ignore what is irrelevant and concentrate on what moves you forward. It protects your energy, your time, and your direction. Winning is not always about doing more. Sometimes it is about reacting less. Less anger, less fear, less doubt controlling your actions. More awareness, more control, more intentional decisions. This shift changes everything. It transforms chaos into order. It turns setbacks into lessons. It converts pressure into performance. When you master emotional discipline, you become difficult to defeat, not because you are invincible, but because you are stable. And stability under pressure is one of the rarest forms of strength. It allows you to think clearly when others cannot, to act wisely when others panic, to persist when others quit. Wars are not only fought on battlefields, they are fought in moments of decision, in moments of pressure, in moments where emotions try to take control. And in those moments, the one who remains disciplined, focused, and controlled will always have the advantage. Consistency beats intensity, every single time, without exception, without negotiation, without mercy. The world is full of people who burn bright for a moment and disappear just as quickly. They start strong, they feel powerful, they push hard for a few days, maybe a few weeks, and then they fade. Not because they lack desire, but because they rely on intensity instead of building consistency. Intensity is emotional. It rises and falls. It depends on mood, energy, and external motivation. But consistency is different. Consistency is deliberate. It is controlled. It does not ask how you feel. It demands that you show up anyway. Most people are addicted to the feeling of starting, the excitement of a new goal, the rush of motivation, the temporary surge of energy that makes them believe this time will be different. But they confuse motion with progress. They mistake a powerful beginning for a lasting transformation. And when that initial intensity fades, as it always does, they stop. They wait for the feeling to return, not realizing that the feeling is not the solution. Consistency is a system. It is a decision repeated daily, regardless of emotion. It is the ability to execute when motivation is gone, when energy is low, when results are not visible. This is where the real work happens, not in moments of excitement, but in moments of resistance, when every part of you wants to stop and you continue anyway. That repetition builds something deeper than motivation. It builds identity. When you act consistently, you begin to see yourself differently. You are no longer someone who tries, you become someone who does. That shift is powerful because identity drives behavior. Once you see yourself as disciplined, consistent, and reliable, your actions start to align with that image. You no longer debate whether to show up. It becomes automatic. It becomes part of who you are. Intensity often creates unrealistic expectations. You push too hard, too fast, expecting immediate results. And when those results do not appear, frustration takes over. Doubt follows, and soon the same energy that pushed you forward pulls you back. Consistency removes that pressure. It focuses on process, not instant outcomes. It understands that real progress takes time, repetition, and patience. Small actions may seem insignificant in the moment. One day of effort feels small. 1 hour of focus feels small. One disciplined choice feels small. But when those actions are repeated day after day, they compound. And compounding is one of the most powerful forces you can harness. It turns small efforts into massive results. It transforms ordinary routines into extraordinary outcomes. But only if you remain consistent long enough to see it. There is a quiet strength in consistency. It does not need attention. It does not rely on excitement. It operates in the background, steady and relentless. While others are chasing motivation, the consistent individual is building momentum. And momentum is dangerous because once it builds, it becomes easier to continue than to stop. Progress accelerates. Confidence grows. And what once felt difficult becomes natural. Discipline is the foundation of consistency. Not discipline driven by force, but discipline built through decision. A clear understanding that certain actions must be taken no matter what. You remove negotiation. You eliminate excuses. You simplify the process to one rule: show up and execute. Over time, this repetition strengthens your ability to act without resistance. Consistency also protects you from emotional extremes. When you rely on intensity, your progress is tied to how you feel. High days lead to overexertion. Low days lead to inaction. But consistency stabilizes that pattern. It keeps you moving at a steady pace, regardless of emotional fluctuations. This stability creates long-term progress, the kind that does not collapse under pressure. There will be days when nothing seems to be working. Days when effort feels wasted, when results are invisible, when doubt starts to question everything. These are the moments that define you. Not the easy days, not the exciting days, but the difficult ones. When you choose to continue despite the lack of immediate reward, you separate yourself from those who quit. And that separation, repeated over time, creates success. Consistency requires patience. It requires trust in the process, even when you cannot see the outcome. Most people fail because they expect quick results from long-term actions. They underestimate how long it takes to build something meaningful and overestimate what can be achieved in a short burst. But those who understand consistency accept the timeline. They focus on execution, knowing that results will follow. Another powerful aspect of consistency is that it builds resilience. Every time you show up when it is difficult, you strengthen your ability to handle discomfort. You expand your limits. What once felt hard becomes manageable. What once felt impossible becomes achievable. This gradual increase in capacity allows you to handle greater challenges over time. Consistency is not about perfection. It is not about doing everything flawlessly every day. It is about persistence, about returning to the path even after mistakes, even after setbacks, even after moments of failure. The consistent individual does not stop because of imperfection. They adjust, they learn, and they continue. That ability to keep going no matter what is what creates lasting success. The world often celebrates intensity because it is visible. It is dramatic. It creates immediate impact. But consistency is less visible. It operates quietly, behind the scenes, and because of that, it is often underestimated. But make no mistake, consistency is the real force behind every significant achievement. It is the reason some individuals rise while others remain stuck in cycles of starting and stopping. If you want to win at a higher level, you must shift your focus. Stop chasing intensity. Stop relying on motivation. Build systems that force consistency. Create routines that remove decision-making. Reduce complexity. Make it easier to show up than to avoid the work. And then repeat again and again without interruption. Over time, those repetitions create results that seem impossible to others. They will see your success and think it happened suddenly. They will not see the days you showed up without recognition, the moments you pushed through resistance, the times you continued when quitting felt easier. But those moments are what built everything. Consistency is not glamorous, it is not exciting, but it is effective, and in the end, effectiveness is what matters. Because while intensity may win moments, consistency wins outcomes. Vision must be protected, not shared with everyone, not exposed to every opinion, not placed in the hands of those who do not understand its weight. Because the moment you reveal something powerful too early, you risk weakening it before it has the strength to stand on its own. Most people lose not because their vision is wrong, but because they allow it to be influenced, questioned, and diluted by voices that were never meant to guide them. A vision is not just an idea. It is a fragile force in its early stages, and if you do not guard it, it will be destroyed before it ever becomes reality. In the beginning, your vision is vulnerable. It is not yet backed by results. It does not have proof, evidence, or external validation. It exists only in your mind, supported by belief and imagination. And that belief is still growing. It is not unshakable yet. This is the most dangerous phase because this is when outside opinions have the most power. A single negative comment can plant doubt. A single moment of criticism can slow your momentum. And if you expose your vision to the wrong people, their limitations will start to shape your thinking. Not everyone sees what you see. Not everyone understands what you are building. And that is not a weakness of your vision, it is a reality of perspective. People interpret everything through their own experiences, their own fears, their own level of belief. If they have never attempted something great, they will not understand your ambition. If they have failed and stopped trying, they will project their fear onto your path. And if you are not careful, their voices will become louder than your own. Protection does not mean isolation from the world. It means selective exposure. It means understanding that not every opinion deserves access to your direction. You must become disciplined in what you allow into your mind, because what you hear repeatedly will influence what you believe, and what you believe will influence what you do. This chain is powerful, and if it is not controlled, it will lead you away from your purpose without you even realizing it. There is a difference between guidance and interference. Guidance strengthens your vision. It challenges you to improve, to refine, to think deeper. Interference, on the other hand, weakens your belief. It introduces doubt without offering direction. It questions without understanding. You must learn to recognize this difference. Not all advice is valuable, and not all criticism is useful. The ability to filter what you accept is a form of protection. Silence becomes a strategy when you understand the value of protection. You do not need to announce every step. You do not need to explain your goals to those who have not earned the right to hear them. When you keep your vision internal, you give it space to grow without pressure. You allow yourself to build without distraction. You remove the need for external approval and replace it with internal conviction. There is also a psychological trap in sharing too much too soon. When you talk about your plans, your mind can mistake that expression for progress. You feel a temporary sense of accomplishment without actually doing the work. That feeling is dangerous because it reduces urgency. It makes you believe you are moving forward when you are standing still. Protection eliminates this illusion. It keeps your focus on execution, not explanation. As your vision grows stronger, as your belief becomes more stable, you can begin to expose it gradually. But even then, you must remain cautious. Not everyone deserves full access. There are individuals who will support, challenge, and elevate your thinking. These are the people you allow closer. But the majority will not fall into this category, and that is fine. You are not building for everyone. You are building for a purpose that only a few will understand. Protection also requires internal strength. It is not only about blocking external negativity, but also about managing internal doubt. Because even in silence, your mind will question you. It will ask if you are capable, if your vision is realistic, if the effort is worth it. These thoughts are natural, but they must not control you. You must train yourself to return to your belief again and again until it becomes stronger than your doubt. Your environment plays a critical role in this process. If you surround yourself with constant negativity, your vision will struggle to survive. If you fill your mind with distractions, your focus will weaken. Protection means creating conditions that support your growth. It means choosing what you consume, who you listen to, and where you invest your attention. Every input matters because every input shapes your thinking. Patience is another form of protection. You cannot rush the development of something meaningful. A strong vision takes time to build, to refine, to execute. If you try to force it too quickly, you expose it to pressure it is not ready to handle. But if you allow it to grow steadily with discipline and focus, it becomes resilient. It becomes something that cannot be easily shaken by external forces. There will come a point where your vision no longer needs protection in the same way. It will be backed by results, supported by evidence, strengthened by experience. At that stage, criticism will not weaken it. Doubt will not shake it. Because it is no longer just an idea, it is a reality in motion. But until you reach that point, protection is essential. Powerful individuals understand this instinctively. They do not reveal everything. They do not seek validation at every step. They move with purpose, with focus, with control. Their vision is not exposed to unnecessary risk. It is built carefully, intentionally, and strategically. And when it is finally revealed, it stands strong, not because it was never challenged, but because it was protected long enough to become unbreakable. Vision is not something to be taken lightly. It is the blueprint of your future, the direction of your energy, the foundation of your actions. If you allow it to be influenced by every voice, it will lose its shape. If you guard it, nurture it, and strengthen it in silence, it will become a force that shapes your reality.
Decisions define destiny, not wishes, not intentions, not the words you repeat to yourself when you feel inspired, but the choices you make when it is difficult, uncertain, and uncomfortable. Every life is a reflection of decisions stacked over time. Small ones, big ones, ignored ones, delayed ones. And whether you realize it or not, you are deciding every day. When you act, you decide. When you hesitate, you decide. When you avoid, you decide. There is no neutral state. You are either moving your life forward or holding it back, and the direction is always determined by choice. Most people treat decisions lightly. They think they can wait, that they can keep options open, that they can move when they feel ready. But readiness is a myth created by fear. The truth is, clarity comes after decision, not before it. Waiting does not make the path clearer, it only makes you slower. And in that delay, opportunities pass, momentum fades, and confidence weakens. Every postponed decision carries a hidden cost, and that cost is time you will never get back. A real decision is not casual. It is not something you consider and then abandon at the first sign of resistance. A real decision cuts off alternatives. It closes doors behind you. It creates a level of commitment where retreat is no longer comfortable. This is why most people avoid it. Because once you decide, you are responsible. You cannot blame circumstances. You cannot hide behind excuses. You must act, and action exposes truth. Indecision is one of the most dangerous habits you can develop. It keeps you in a constant state of analysis without movement. You think you are being careful, but in reality you are being controlled by fear. Fear of making the wrong choice, fear of failure, fear of judgment. And while you remain stuck in that loop, life continues without you. Others move forward, take risks, learn, adapt, and grow, while you remain in the same place, waiting for certainty that will never arrive. Every powerful individual you will ever study shares one trait. They decide quickly and adjust along the way. They understand that progress is not about perfect decisions, but about committed ones. A wrong decision made with full commitment often leads to growth, experience, and new opportunities. But no decision at all leads to stagnation. And stagnation slowly erodes belief, confidence, and momentum. There is a moment in every opportunity where hesitation appears. A voice that questions, that warns, that tries to pull you back into comfort. This moment is critical, because what you do in that moment shapes your direction. If you listen to hesitation, you remain where you are. If you act despite it, you expand your limits. And every time you choose action over hesitation, you strengthen your ability to decide in the future. Decisions also define identity. The choices you make repeatedly become who you are. If you constantly choose comfort, you become comfortable. If you constantly choose discipline, you become disciplined. If you choose growth, you become someone who evolves. Identity is not something you declare, it is something you demonstrate through action. And those actions are always driven by decisions. One of the greatest shifts you can make is moving from emotional decisions to intentional ones. Emotional decisions are reactive. They are based on how you feel in the moment. And because emotions change, those decisions are often inconsistent. Intentional decisions are different. They are based on direction, on purpose, on long-term vision. They remain stable even when emotions fluctuate. This stability creates progress that does not collapse under pressure. There will be times when you will not have all the information, times when the path is unclear, when the outcome is uncertain,
Waiting for complete certainty in these moments is a mistake, because certainty is not a requirement for decision, commitment is. Once you commit, you begin to create clarity through action. You learn, you adapt, you adjust, but none of that happens until you move. Courage is not the absence of fear, it is the ability to decide despite it, to take a step when doubt is present, when the outcome is unknown, when the risk is real. This is where transformation begins, not in safe choices, but in bold ones, decisions that stretch you, challenge you, and force you to grow. These are the decisions that change direction, that create new possibilities, that define a different future. Responsibility is tied directly to decision. The moment you decide, you accept ownership of the outcome. This is powerful because it removes blame. You are no longer waiting for conditions to change. You become the one who creates change. This shift in mindset is what separates those who remain stuck from those who move forward. Because when you take responsibility, you take control. Consistency in decision-making builds trust within yourself. Every time you follow through on a choice, you reinforce belief. You prove to yourself that you can commit and execute, and that belief becomes a foundation for bigger decisions. But every time you break your own commitment, you weaken that foundation. You create doubt. You teach yourself that your decisions do not matter. Over time, this pattern becomes destructive. Speed matters. Not reckless speed, but decisive speed. The ability to evaluate, choose, and act without unnecessary delay, because opportunities often require quick action. If you hesitate too long, they disappear. And while you are still thinking, someone else has already decided. There is also a discipline in simplifying decisions. Too many options create confusion. Too many choices create hesitation. When you reduce complexity, when you focus on what truly matters, decisions become easier. You stop overthinking, you start acting, and action creates momentum. Momentum is powerful because it makes future decisions easier. Once you are in motion, you build confidence. You see progress. You trust your ability to navigate challenges. But the hardest part is always the beginning. The first decision. The moment where you choose to move instead of wait. Life does not respond to what you hope for. It responds to what you decide and act upon. Every result you experience is connected to a decision you made or avoided. This connection is constant, whether you acknowledge it or not. And once you understand it, you realize that your future is not random. It is being shaped right now by the choices you are making in this moment. Decisions define destiny because they direct energy, focus, and action. They determine what you pursue, what you ignore, what you build, and what you abandon. And over time, those directions become outcomes. Not instantly, not always visibly, but inevitably. If you want a different life, you do not wait for different circumstances. You make different decisions, and then you stand by them with discipline, with consistency, and with full commitment until they create the result you chose. You have heard the laws, not theories, not empty motivation, but principles that operate whether you accept them or not. Silent power, clear direction, emotional control, relentless consistency, protected vision, and decisive action. These are not separate ideas. They are a system. And systems, when followed with discipline, create results that cannot be ignored. Now the truth stands in front of you, simple and undeniable. Nothing changes unless you do. Not tomorrow, not when you feel ready, not when circumstances improve. Change begins the